Okay, Trump. Coming in.
Damn. Button, it's
yes, but the buttons are close together. Hey, what's up? Welcome. This is This Week in White Supremacy. However, we did have somebody email us with a new name.
Okay.
Miracle and Company. That was that's what we were called. We should introduce Miracle first and then introduce ourselves. I'm just serious.
Stay humble. You gotta be humble.
Yes, I'm just serious. I'm co-founder and CEO of One Hit Media. However, we know who you're here to see.
We know.
And it's
a miracle.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't support that.
Oh, that's you versus the Democrats.
Well, in that case, just JK.
Interesting enough, that's what the blackmail is about.
Raging. I'm ready for that conversation because, anyways.
Yes, we will get into that, but please introduce yourself.
My name is Miracle, aka Big Blessing with the Big Blessings.
Yes.
I'm here, turning up, having fun, speaking into the mic directly.
Yes. Boots on, right?
Yeah,
ready to?
Yes. Boots are always on.
I feel like every one of these topics is right down your alley, Miracle, each one. And I feel like you're going to have a lot to say. So if you love Miracle, this is going to be a great episode for you. A great episode. And my brother.
Madame et monsieur.
Oh.
What?
Bienvenue cette semaine. Les Supremacy Blanche. Fête de Canada.
Oh, today is Canada Day. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And you spoke, was that French?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know what you said, but hopefully.
Yeah, welcome to This Week in White Supremacy.
Oh, okay.
Je suis la supreme asiatic intelligently savant.
Look at you. Look at you.
Just sweet.
Yes, Canada. Oh, that's why you have all of the
celebrating a day of colonization.
Canada Day,
wow.
yes. The day where they stole from the indigenous people of Canada.
Wow.
Actually, that's not the day. Today's the day we separated from England, but
Oh, that's another day.
Yeah.
Well, I have a game show that I want to play.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Who wants to be a millionaire?
Close.
Are you smarter than a fifth grader?
Close.
I am not.
And to me, the title, this probably will be the title. The question is, who's madder at Mamdani?
Oh, man.
Who's madder? Republicans or Democrats?
Yo,
we talked about it last week.
Yeah.
We were going into the primary of, Mamdani versus Cuomo. We wondered aloud why the Democrats were not supporting this young, energetic, articulate, somebody that was connecting with the young people, everything the Democrats said they wanted, and then he pulls off this shocking victory. Over a $30 million PAC of Andrew Cuomo. He wins the primary. He wins it in a way, right? Again, now this was something that I saw on social media, so I'm not all the way sure
that it's authentic.
That it's I'm just gonna go with it, right? It said, right, that hold on, let me find this. They had a thing like supercharging the young people. They were saying that the most in the Democratic primary, the age group that voted the most in the 2025 Democratic primary in New York, 18 to 24.
And this is for the mayoral or the presidential?
The mayoral.
Okay,
the mayoral. This is my Mamdani, right? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Mamdani. Yeah,
Mamdani.
Yeah. Okay. It looks how it sounds.
Got you. Or Zoran.
Yeah.
So Zoran got the most votes, 18 to 24. The second most votes, 25 to 29. The third most votes, 30 to 34. So Mamdani was brought in. He won because all the young people came out.
Right.
Voted for him, endorsed him more than any other group.
It's almost like he listened to them. Like, Jesus Christ.
It's almost like he found a way
to attach and
to connect with them.
Yeah,
wow. And isn't this the thing that the Democrats said they wanted?
No.
Well, they might have said they want. Did they? They said they want, but they
Did they explicitly say this is what we want to do, or did they just kind of beat around the bush?
Well, it was a thing of like, how do we get the young people? How do we get the podcast bros? How do we? He did all that. He did it, and he won.
But not the way he was supposed to. Not like that. The Democrats said, listen, we seen what you did, but you're not supposed to do it that way. Don't do it that way.
So again, you would think,
right?
Like
that's your fucking problem.
Thinking
is
whenever a man thinks,
thinking that the Democrats are so excited now they have this new young fresh face of the party
to ruin.
That could take them, that can have them, that's reaching into these demographics. Because even us, right? Where we're not in New York,
no,
but we were also inspired by his policies. He did the whole, what's the thing where the guys on the subway and they speak into the little subway thing in New York?
The subway podcast.
The subway podcast. Subway takes.
Yeah.
He did,
what's your hot take?
Yeah. So it was definitely inspiring to see. I'm inspired by him. I'm not even there. We were kind of like encouraging people to vote. And we're not even in New York.
And we have a lot of assets in New York, and we have a good reputation in New York. Right. So we absolutely were inspired by him. But I remember us talking about this earlier in the year.
Yeah.
About the potentiality of him being a little too radical, or maybe just radical enough to sway the election. Right.
Well, again, so now the question is,
who's matter?
How radical is he? But so again, obviously, we know that the Republicans are going to come with this playbook, right? Yeah. And we kind of know what the Republican playbook is.
What we didn't expect.
Well, let's. I do want to. I'll shoot the clip. We can play this clip. This is
a very violent episode.
This is Levitt. Is that her name? What's her name? I think Caroline
the Speaker
Levitt.
Of the House?
Caroline, because remember they did the whole. They did the mashup. No, they did the yes. You're the reason of the word. They did a mashup.
I missed that. That's amazing. They used roses? Oh,
yes, they used roses on her. So Caroline Levitt, this was her. Why do you all think like this? The song Roses. What is wrong with you?
Everyone should have roses used
on them. Really?
If you were over 18, a rose should be used on YouTube.
The song by Outkast called Roses.
If you don't know what it is, Google it.
What is wrong?
If you're over 18. No.
What is wrong?
Keep going. I'm just saying.
Can you just please? This is the White House press secretary, Caroline Levitt, on Mamdani. Can you play that clip, please?
Jesus Christ.
The Democrats are doubling down on craziness and radical policies that are undermining the very fabric of our country. Just look at the Democrat nominee for New York City Mayor, Zoran Mamdani. He's a Democrat socialist, really a communist, who proudly calls to defund the police, peddles anti-Semitism, praises pro-Hamas groups, wants Israel abolished, and believes wealthy Americans should not exist. Those are his words, just as recent as this weekend.
Those are not
Meanwhile,
his words.
under President Trump's leadership, Republicans are fighting tirelessly for everyday, middle-class, working Americans.
It's just pure lies. He didn't say any of that.
Yeah, it's all factually incorrect.
All factually incorrect.
As the Speaker of the House, you have an obligation to report authenticity.
Well, she's the White House. She's not the
press secretary. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
press
she's
secretary.
the White House.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And she has,
but even more so,
bro. She's Trump's White House press secretary. So she is not. But they even, how they say, let's take it a step further. They took it a step further, and they're actually having conversations about should Mamdani be deported.
Right.
Did you want to play that clip?
Fucking crazy. Here we go.
Hey, Caroline, does President Trump want Zoran Mamdani deported?
I haven't heard him say that. I haven't heard him call for that. But certainly he does not want this individual to be elected. I was just speaking to him about it and his radical policies that will completely crush New York City, which is obviously a city that the president holds near and dear to his heart.
There's this Congressman, Andy Ogles, he wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile use of the Attorney General's time?
Well, I'll let the president speak to that. I have not seen those claims, but surely if they are true, it's something that should be investigated.
So now
that nigga look like Greg from Succession.
But again, like now they're talking about, and you mentioned it, we mentioned it last week, this wave of Islamophobia. So, but again, I think we expect Trump, like I'm expecting Trump to be the racist, white supremacist bigot that he is. So obviously when a Muslim, when a Muslim man wins, who's a progressive, wins the primary in New York City, and we obviously expected Trump to do this, right? We expected them to get in their racist bag. They mentioned this Representative Andrew Ogles from Tennessee. They said he referred to Mamdani as Little Muhammad.
Whoa.
And also wrote that he needs to be deported. He was born in Uganda. Yeah. And he became a United States citizen in 2018. And so, he's Muslim. So clearly this is Islamophobia. This is dangerous. This is all of this. But obviously, like I said, expected. Marjorie Taylor Greene posted an image of the Statue of Liberty with a burqa over it. You know what I'm saying? Representative Nancy Mace shared a photo of Mamdani and said, after 9/11, we said, never forget. I think we sadly have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is
wildness.
Right.
Absolutely.
They called him, another Republican called him anti-Semitic, jihadist, communist candidate. But again, I think we expect this. Them to do this, and it's almost like, to me, the more they attack you, the better you are. Again, remember, we talked about Libs of TikTok and Laura Loomer, like the Charlie Kirk. These are the worst people in the world. If the worst people in the world hate you, to me, you probably a pretty good person. Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. I think, and I know Miracle has a lot to say about this. I want to speak anecdotally, but I'm gonna let Miracle.
Oh no, Miracle wants to speak on the next.
The next, yeah.
I'll speak on what I think is Mamdani being a progressive Muslim. People do not know how to take him, right? Because for a longest time, Islam was seen as this really restrictive, repressive religion. Yes. You have this man who is not white, who has a beard, who has a funny name, who worships Allah, who's talking about trans rights, who's talking about queer rights.
Who was at the Pride Parade.
Yeah. Who's at the Pride Parade, who is talking about feeding people, clothing people, doing all the things that Jesus was supposed to do. And now you're like, I don't know.
But, followers of Jesus are supposed to do. Jesus did it.
Correct.
His followers are supposed to and have not.
Correct. And so now people are like, how in the world do they reconcile this? Because now people, like, one, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world,
and it's been that way for a while,
and it has been that way. But also people are starting to understand that it is not this most repressive thing that people have been taught that it was. And they're like, oh, like, what do you mean this progressive Muslim is saying we need to protect queer and trans folks, but like my Christian right-wing pastor is not? And so of course you're doing these knee-jerk things for people to do, like social media clout. But for me, I love the fact that people are pushing back. And I know we're going to talk about it a little later, but I love the fact that even conservatives are pushing back, because I do think that a lot of this MAGA stuff is literally on its end, and people are really like frustrated with the systems, and they're like, this is not what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. To Miracle's point about, and this is, I guess, where my anecdote comes in, you have to look at it like a lot of us as Muslims practicing in the States, we don't practice the way that the world wants us to. right? We're in America. Like we recognize that we're in a Western society.
Yes.
And most of us, like in Zoran's case, first gen, or just really like recently naturalized, or however you want to frame it.
Right.
A lot of us at this day and age are not going to practice Islam the way our parents did. Right. We're way more secular.
Absolutely.
And it also casts a light on Islam to be just like every other religion.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have cafeteria Muslims, you have cafeteria Christians. I mean, shit, like, I don't even fast every day during Ramadan and astaghfirullah, but there's a lot of other Muslims that have that same issue, right?
100%.
There's plenty Muslims that drink. There's plenty Muslims that have premarital sex. There's plenty Muslims that are gay and queer and align different ways, right?
Right.
But that doesn't make them any less Muslim.
Right.
And Zoran speaking out really just kind of gives America a sense of like a magnifying glass into what it's like of just the regular lives of Muslims. Like, we're just regular people.
Right.
So there's nothing inherently different about any Muslim person.
But that goes against, like, particularly like this GOP narrative.
Absolutely.
Of like, these are of othering people.
Yeah.
And again, this is how individuals like Donald Trump and the GOP win elections. They you other immigrants, you other Muslims, you other black people.
Yeah.
And then you're able to run on these cultural issues. But like you said, if by chance we find ourselves in a place where we all see ourselves, like similarly, like kind of what Miracle talks about every episode, right? Where we see the solidarity that each one of us have with one another.
Yeah.
Then that racist ideology goes away.
Yeah, and furthermore, and I just want to say this real fast. When you look at things, and we always talk about what are flat circles, right? Politics is a flat circle, time is a flat circle. The MAGA and these alt-right belief systems are virtually the same as like the Taliban and like the extremely oppressive Islamic, like the real jihadist ideology, right? Yeah. They're the same person, right? Yeah. They really and truly are. Like, the MAGA people just tend to drive pickup trucks and live in the backwoods of America, right? Was in the Middle East and Afghanistan, a lot of these people are Hicks. Right, a lot of the people that practice it are the ruralists, are the people that are outside, away from the cities. Right. So, when you look at like how Islam is portrayed in this cultural narrative, there's essentially the same people talking about each other.
But it's also weird because at the same time that you're talking about him, like you're going to Qatar and trying to get a plane. Right?
Come on,
You just did this whole Middle East thing. Where you were, because Trump loves the money and the power and the dictators and all of those things. So again, fascinating how they're more similar than anything.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But I had raised this point also. You have to think Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X was, for a lot of Americans, their first introduction to Islam.
Absolutely,
right?
definitely.
And so
I love when you said this.
And so also you have to remember that Islamophobia is anti-black racism, because it started, that pushback wasn't about right at the the onset about people being Muslim. It was about them being black and pushing out and speaking up against the government at the time.
Correct.
And then as immigration came in, that anti-blackness then began to be tied to the religion. And then when it was tied to the religion, then you can bomb these places, then you can steal resources from these places. And now you can have, take your rights. We can surveil people now, right? All of these bills.
But that's not to say that there's not anti-blackness in Islam.
Correct.
And that's something that we've talked about a lot on this show.
Correct.
Absolutely.
But I'm just talking about, like, when we're having these conversations, I think it's like very important to understand that from the white supremacy part is that it started off as anti-blackness.
Yes.
Then it was othering, right? Because at first you wanted a lot of immigrants because black people were too stupid, black people were too lazy. Then you had too many immigrants, and then it was like, oh no, these people with these foreign names and these foreign religions, they're a problem, they're a threat to our way of life. Now we need to stop them from coming over here. Now we need to go over there and bomb them. So it became this narrative that's unwinding, and now here we are in 2025, and it's like, why, if Zoran Mamdani is your regular average Muslim, why in the world are we bombing people? Why are we saying that this is weird? Why in the world are we sitting there talking about whether or not his wife wears a head covering or not? What are these conversations, and do these conversations even matter? And so I've been talking to a lot of folks. These are for the first time. this is the first time they've ever seen people actually push back against Islamophobia. Like, you saw a lot of stuff. I think after 9/11, people didn't push back against Islamophobia. They were like, oh, you picked the Sikh, and the Sikh isn't, Muslim. There are all these religions where, had, turbans, and you have to think about who are you targeting, right? It was the wrong, at that time, people thought they were doing right, but it was the wrong framing and messaging. This past week, you've literally had people defending Muslims simply for the fact that they are Muslims.
Like they should. And I think, to me, when you think about the intersection of anti-blackness and Islamophobia, and Farouk brought up last week, right? We saw it with Barack Obama. Because his name was Barack Hussein Obama, like, Barack is eating pork chops and drinking beer. Like, he was in the church all the time. You can't at one point attack his pastor and then say he's a Muslim. Like, which is it? Did he have a pastor that you didn't like, or is he Muslim? Like, which one is it? But we saw that, like you said, the scary name, the scary guy. And what was Barack Obama but the greatest gift that the Democrats had received, and totally revitalized. And so here is another potential gift. However, it wasn't just Republicans that were angry with Zohar or that attacked him.
And to be honest with you, they probably led the most mild attack because it was just regular. Like, you know what they were going to say.
Right. So when you see the top and this is according to Huffington Post, this is their headline. Top Democratic senator goes on wildly racist tirade against Zoran Mamdani. And basically this is Senator Christian Gillibrand, who falsely accused him of supporting calls for violence against Jews. And so she was doing a radio show, and basically she says the caller is exactly the New York constituents I've spoken to that are alarmed. They are alarmed by past public statements. They are alarmed by past positions. Now she's talking about Zoran, particularly references to global jihad. This is a very serious issue because people that glorify the slaughter of Jews create fear in our community. The global intifada is a statement that means destroy and kill all Jews. But let's start from there, because it's a statement that he's never said.
Right.
He's never said that. There's no record of him saying that
at all.
There's no tweets of him saying that. And so, like, when you try again, this is blatant Islamophobia.
Yeah.
To try to put something on him that he didn't even say, and then now when you put it on him, now it's like, okay, now we need you to condemn this. You want me to condemn something I never said? You want me to condemn language that I've never used, I never said? Remember, he's one of his talking points in his campaign was raising by 800% the money that goes into protecting people from hate crimes.
Yeah.
Specifically talking about anti-Semitism and fighting back against anti-Semitism in New York City. So at no point, so this is where it becomes like, oh, like, and my one, it's like I thought you was on his side, I guess. Why would I think the Democrats would be on his side? I don't know. He won the Democratic primary, but when he says it, then Hakeem Jeffries comes out and he says,
of course,
well, he has to talk about this, globalize the intifada. Again, something that he did not say.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to me that you want to do that to him, like Donald Trump has said in your face anti-Semitic stuff, anti-women stuff, anti-black stuff, whatever, all in your face.
Yeah.
Can I condemn that?
So
there's no call. Again, we accept it.
Yeah.
We accept that. Yes. You want to say something, bro?
So time and time again, I say this on the show. The Democrats are so docile and tame in their approach to Donald Trump because largely in part they benefit from everything that he does. And this is another situation where the Democrats are benefiting from white supremacy because now they have a scapegoat. Yeah. Now they have a pinata that they can hit and try to pick apart before this election.
Yes.
I think that overall, America is reckoning right now with this browning of America, this browning of the, you know what I mean, the social economic spectrum. America has always fancied itself of a nation of the world, a world of nations. And now you have something that's reflective of what the world looks like in America. You have brown and black people and other people in politics and positions of power, and these white people cannot grapple with the fact that they are no longer leading every single statistical category in the game, right? So when Zoran Mamdani is looking like to be the next mayor of New York City, inshallah, you know what I mean? It is something to grapple with because it forces you to look at New York as not as a Friends or Seinfeld episode, but forces you to look at New York for what it really is.
Right.
Like a cultural epicenter,
yes.
A narrative of the entire globe. Everybody in the world is represented in New York City.
Right.
And you can no longer just look at this as this is white place. Like, New York is not fucking Bensonhurst.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's a Bensonhurst in New York.
Right.
But in its totality,
New York is brown, it's black, it's vibrant, it's
Right,
colorful,
right.
it's loud, right? There's so many different things.
Yeah.
Like, and it has food, it has culture, it has depth.
it's Dominicans, it's Puerto Ricans,
It's everything,
Mexicans.
right? New York feels different than the rest of the world, right? And as a former New York resident, I can attest to this.
Africans, Jamaicans.
It's everybody, right?
Yeah.
But what white people are starting to grapple with, or trying to, I say reckoning with, is the fact that New York isn't theirs.
Right.
Right? The country isn't theirs. It belongs to everybody. And when you have someone coming up and saying, okay, I hear everything you're saying, I'm going to meet Jewish people where they are in their synagogues in New York City. I'm going to tax rich people, wealthy.
Yes.
If you make over $1 million.
Yeah. By 2%, which is $2,000, but that's neither
2%, right?
Yeah.
He's going out at the trans parades, the LGBTQI, but having the trans flag, that's what I meant to say. He's on the subway with regular people.
Yeah.
He walked Manhattan, right?
Can we play? Because like what you're saying, and again, like what's fascinating is, again, I think this piece around what he was able to do, how he was able to connect, particularly the young people, and the fact that when he won, the Democrats didn't embrace him, but in fact put like a caveat and an asterisk. Here is, some people see as the current Democratic leader right now, Hakeem Jeffries, on Mamdani. Did you want to play that? And then, the reason I want to play this because I see Miracle stretching. I see her getting her legs ready to kick some Democratic back in. Go ahead, brother. Play that, please.
Hakeem the huge joke Jeffries.
Yes.
You mentioned the diversity of your district, including a lot of Jewish constituents. Mamdani has made comments that some have said veer towards anti-Semitism. His initial statement after October 7th, he criticized the Israeli government but didn't criticize Hamas. He defended the use of the word globalize, or the phrase globalize intifada. And he even said that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu should be arrested, or he would, if he were mayor, he would arrest Netanyahu.
Literally a war criminal.
Yeah, he's follow the law.
Come on.
Do these things concern you?
Globalizing the Intifada, by way of example, is not an acceptable phrase, and he's going to have to clarify his position on that as he moves forward. With respect to the Jewish communities that I represent, I think our nominee is going to have to convince folks that he is prepared to aggressively address the rise in anti-Semitism in the city of New York, which has been an unacceptable.
Yeah, you can pause that because, he's done that. Again, like that was
his whole talk. Like when
that was the one of the talking points was, I see this rise in anti-Semitism, and I'm going to tackle it head on. One of my policies, I'm going to spend money. I'm going to work with Jewish people. He had, he ran with a Jewish man. Come on, they ran together. So again, to me, it's weird.
That's also dismissive of the Jewish people that support him.
Of course. And then also Hakeem Jeffries. Remember, this isn't Christian Gillibrand, Hakeem Jeffries. They haven't endorsed this man.
Yeah.
Also, which is also fascinating, even though he won the Democratic primary. And again, all over the country, people are inspired by this, are feeling this, are talking about this. Miracle?
The Democrats just want to self-implode.
Look at Miracle. Miracle? Why? Again, now mind you, This is the happening right now. Trump is in the 30s in his approval rating.
Right.
Right. Trump had the lowest approval rating of any president in the first 100 days in the history of the poll. At the same time, the Democrats had their lowest approval rating in history as well.
Yeah.
Clearly, people are not satisfied with either party, and here comes a bright light, a spark, as you will, a hope, right, coming up.
So I think we got to remember Zoran Mamdani's father,
Yes.
Mahmoud Mamdani.
Come on, man.
Wrote a book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim.
Okay, can you speak into the mic because you're on the side of it? Yes.
Zoran Mamdani is the son of Mahmoud Mamdani, who wrote this book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, where he talks about how in recent time there is this thing where you try to pick what Muslim is good and which Muslim is bad based on the words and phrases you're using, because you try to use the good Muslim to justify all the harm and violence that goes towards the bad Muslims.
Yes.
And at the same time, a book we've talked about before called I Refuse to Condemn is a book where it's talking about that when it comes to particularly black and brown Muslims, this idea of condemnation never works out for you. Whether you condemn globalized intifada or not, you are still going to be called whatever terminology that they are going to call you. So instead of refusing to condemn, actually stand on your principles and espouse what you believe in, what you fight for, and that is how you have the conversation, because you're never going to win any type of conversation where people try to frame you as either a good Muslim or a bad Muslim.
Right.
Zoran has talked about the work that he wants to do to respond to anti-Jewish hatred and fears of the increase and rise of anti-Jewish sentiment. However, he is not going to do that at the expense of creating bad Muslims or bad brown people that folks then have a reason to demonize, and that is why people are upset. Because he will not give space to have that other that you are afraid of, that other that you want to condemn. He's like, no, we're all going to have to come to this table because we are all part of being residents in the city. And that is something that people have really struggled with, right? Because there are some Jewish people who hear globalize the Antifada as a call to kill all Jews. There are Arabs and Muslims who hear globalize the Intifada as it is directly translated, uprising, pushing back against oppression and coming together to fight back against unjust policies. The first Intifada that we talk about was nonviolent. The second Intifada was violent. The third Intifada was nonviolent. It was the March of Return that was violent on Palestinians but nonviolent on Israelis. And the last Intifada that people talk about, the fourth Intifada, the student Intifada, the student uprisings, right? None of these, when we think about it, are one type of uprising, right? And when Zoran was talking about, the Holocaust and the Warsaw uprisings were Intifada because it was an uprising. It was people fighting back against oppression. He was
literally talking about the literal definition of what the word means.
Stonewall is considered an Intifada. If you look at the Arabic, the way that it's written in Arabic languages.
And that's what he was talking about. He was like, when it's he was talking about when that Poland uprising is translated into Arabic,
it's Intifada.
The word they use to describe it is Intifada.
Right. And so when you have a culture like the United States of America that is monolingual, when we hear stuff in Arabic, like, what does that mean?
Absolutely.
That must be a threat. It must be something dangerous. It's Arabic. Ooh, all scary. And he's like, no, right? And that is actually what we have to do to come together as a society, is understand there are cultural triggers. There are things that you say that I'm going to take as a threat and I'm going to feel, but that doesn't give me the right to say every time you say this word, that's what it means. It's me saying, when you say this word, this is how I feel.
Yes.
Your intent, your impact is not going to align. How do we address it and how do we engage? We haven't been able to have those type of conversations.
We have not.
And that is a part of why our country and our society is like so sick and so segregated, is because we've never really been able to have any type of racial reconciliation. And so what Zoran is doing is saying, hey, this is what the reality is, and this is how I'm going to mobilize and move. The Democrats have failed.
Yes.
Because Hakeem could have been like, you know what? Okay, I see what's happening in my party. I see these results. And I see that people are saying we want Brad here, we want Blake here, and I'm on that list.
We could have first said, like, let's not endorse Cuomo, but that's neither here nor there.
Come on, man.
We're past that. You know what I'm saying? And it's looking like Cuomo is going to run as an independent. Eric Adams is running. Who knows what's going to happen?
And here's this thing. Once you sit there and say sexual violence is not your red line and you're going to endorse someone.
Right, yes.
It's done. Like, it is done,
Absolutely.
right? And I do think a lot about how Ta-Nehisi Coates, like, what if Democrats cannot sit there and say, like, genocide is wrong, what democracy are they fighting for, right?
Correct.
And how are they engaging? And so now you see people being like, oh, we can run, we can be ourselves, we don't have to throw away Palestinians, we can bring in Palestinians and Jews and Christians and Muslims and blacks and queer and trans folks, and we can still win. We don't have to other people, we don't have to cast people out, because Zoran did not throw away queer and trans people when it became unpopular. He had a whole plan for queer and trans New Yorkers that he put out
that some Muslims
even took issue with.
Will probably take issue
there
with.
were some Muslims who even took issue with that, and he stood on business. And
I want to get back, though, to what you were saying about the words, right? Because at the root of a lot of the, and again, as somebody who has, you know, we did a whole, particularly like post Tree of Life, we started to have these Black Jewish solidarity conversation. And one of the things that I realized in those moments was, like I was saying a word or a phrase and interpreting it differently, right? I was interpreting it through the lens of a black man, or through the lens of the civil rights struggle, or through the lens as somebody who every day of my life as a black person has lived under an oppressed system, right? A white supremacist system. So I'm interpreting it this way, but somebody else who has a different experience, right? If you're Jewish or Israeli and you lost somebody in the Intifada, right? Or if you lost, because I saw like, a post by somebody that's Jewish that was like, when we hear Intifada, we think of this, and it was blown up buses, right? And so clearly, if you were there, you lost somebody, you hear that word, that's what you're going to think. You're going to think that it means violence against Jewish people, but that doesn't mean that when somebody says it, that's what they mean. But you don't know, like, unless we sit down and have those dialogues, I would argue that right now the word Zionist is very similar. Because a lot of people hear Zionist and automatically equate it to, you want to take away land, you want it to be violent, you want it to be, where a Jewish person might look and say, all this means is I want my own homeland. And like, what does that mean? So again, if we're not sitting down and coming together and being in a room and saying, hey, this is actually what I mean. Like, hey, I don't want to do violence against you. You don't want to do violence against me. Let's start there. And let's figure out, how do we get to a point of unity? To me, Zoran and Brad coming together was really kind of like that. It was like a bromance, you know what I'm saying, where they're together and it's like Muslim, and it's like, this is something that we can use in terms of how we come together collectively as different races or people that with clearly they have different lived experiences, right? But they were willing to sit down and talk. It wasn't like they agreed on everything, but they're willing to sit down and talk and work together for a greater New York. That's what we want. We want the ability to say, like, again, like, let's understand that people and different words and things trigger us. But beyond that, how do we come together and say, particularly like, because when white supremacy comes, and we're seeing this, it's coming for Muslims and Jews. I don't know if y'all watching what's been taking place on the MAGA side, right? It's coming for all of us. So there's a point. So to me, why don't we look at this and say, yo, we have an opportunity, like, to have these deeper conversations. But when we say, when the first thought is to demonize this person, to demonize Zoran, and then to say, oh, Brad, he's self-hating. Yeah. And then we don't even get to talk as a community. It's just so, it's like, come on, really?
Because that's where the benefit come from. That's where the money comes from. Let's be very honest. If you and I sit down, if you and I are in a disagreement, right?
Yes.
and then we solve our disagreements, then there's no reason for you to have a gun to come and shoot me, right? There's no reason for you to have a security camera because I'm going to come break into your home. You think about it, there is so much money that is invested in people being fearful and afraid. I'm not even talking about, even before we get to the military and the genocide, all that. There is so much money. There's the whole gun industry, the whole surveillance industry. The
Defense Department
is based on us being afraid and fearful of one another. And so a lot of times,
one plane be $1 billion. It'd be one plane.
Right. So solidarity not only is necessary, but it's also cost effective. But when people...
And that plane could be what, Miracle? What could that $1 billion plane be? It could be a high-speed rail.
The fact is, so many people have come up to me in the past 2 weeks and they were like, I don't really care about high-speed rail, but I know you care about it so passionately, so I want high-speed rail to happen for you. It makes me really happy. But I think about this as... I've been having conversations with a lot of people, and just the ability to have a conversation is always under attack. Even just want to sit down and be like, okay, when to bring Muslims, Jews, Black people, queer people together, it is always under attack. People call the places, do bomb threats, people try to pull all this type of things, and now I think people really are trying to live. People are looking at New York and they're like, oh, we could have nicer things. We don't have to be in silos and afraid. We don't have to call people this name and that name. We could literally be okay. And I think a lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, I just want to laugh again. I just want to be okay. I just want to pick up the phone.
And there were some great jokes. Some great Mamdani 1 jokes that we shared. That were hilarious.
That were fun. And I think that Brad Lander, oh my God, I forget the Black man's name. His name starts with, I think it's Zelly, maybe his name, the third guy.
I'm not sure.
Cuomo asked him and said, will you endorse, maybe Zelnor, will you endorse me and I'll cross-endorse you? And he said no. And I think about the way we build solidarity, because Adrian Adams as well, could have pulled a Jessica and be like, okay, I'm going to endorse Cuomo. And everybody said no. So you had a Jewish man, 3 Black people, Michael Blake, who cracked me up. I really, really liked him. All stood by Mamdani and said no. And when I think about, Hill Harper, when he got the money to run.
They wanted him to run against Rashida Tlaib.
And he said no.
He didn't want to do that.
This idea of how do we actually build solidarity? How do we have those conversations? Because I'll guarantee you, there are a lot of, even here in Pittsburgh, I'll talk to somebody and they said a contract is a contract. They were like, I got approached. This is the amount of money. A contract is a contract. So how do we get people to get to the idea or say, you know what? Okay, this person approached me. This is what they gave me. This is what the offer is. I still said no. How do we get that? Because
that's what we want.
I think about that. What infrastructure do we need? And how do we give people hope to get involved and to support mutual aid, knowing that if they don't sell out, that they will be okay? Because I've had some hard conversations and people
will we? Are we willing? No, I'm not going to ask that.
No, but
I was going to ask a question are we willing to? Are we talking to Candace now that she's
because people Candace, I think is starting. For me, she's starting to try to rebrand.
We got a little.
But you called us a while ago that she was rebranding.
She's rebranding because it's. I was talking to somebody and they were like, they were a far right influencer. And they said, you don't realize being a far right influencer means you are forever attached to the worst people ever. And then once you start to meet your fans in real life, it's just we don't want that. But also, I believe in transformative justice, right? And so I believe that once you realize you have done wrong, it is your responsibility to do right.
Well, that makes one person at the table.
Hold on, no. But wait.
Don't believe that.
No, wait. But transformative justice isn't just restorative justice where you work with the people you harm. Transformative justice is, look, I did wrong. This is why I did wrong. I have to undo these systems.
And you're willing to meet with those people, right, Miracle?
No, that's transformative justice does not require restorative justice. Transformative justice doesn't require you to meet with people.
Miracle does not like to meet with people. I don't. For those that don't know, Miracle abhors meeting.
I I abhor meetings. I abhor healing circles because I also think that like.
And icebreakers.
Yes.
Those
oh
are
my
top
gosh.
3.
Oh my God. This meeting I had the other day, I was so irate. But I think that we get this idea that the only way for us to be better is if I apologize to you and I say sorry to you. I had this conversations with an Iraqi because I had talked about how like I was one of those people at the onset of the Iraq war was like, you know, raha, go America, da da da, and I had to do my own unlearning. And I was like, there is nothing that I would ever be able to do, ever be able to say that will take away from the mistakes that I did. But I still am out here engaging because I understand what militarism is and how it's wrong and how it impacts people.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times people think, oh, I made a mistake. I need to tell you I'm sorry. You cry, I cry, we cry together and we hold hands. It's like, no. Sometimes change is just you understanding you did wrong and not doing wrong anymore, but then also bringing other people along to have conversations and to engage. And that is what it is. And I think a lot of times we do not know how to have conversations that are actual, legitimate, and not transactional.
So I do want to play.
And that's for me why I don't like to have conversations with people.
My bad.
And
I
just
didn't mean to
trying
cut
to
you
make
off.
me have friends, and I don't want friends. No new friends. Team Drake.
We did want. It's so funny
in this instance.
We did want to play before we close because I didn't know this was going to be. Yeah, we've been talking about this for an hour. Who's madder, Mamdani? We were doing so, but
snap.
He was actually asked the question. On, I think this was Meet the Press.
Yeah.
Can you play the clip where they asked him about the globalize the intifada phrase and how he responded? This is Mamdani in his own words.
Asked about the term globalize the intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue, so I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president, who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use, it's language I understand there are concerns about, and what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Let me ask you broadly.
Again, I mean,
will anyone ever ask Cuomo, since you refused to visit a mosque, since you willingly decided to be Netanyahu's legal part of his legal team.
Right.
Are you Islamophobic? How will Muslims in New York feel safe with you based on your actions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the onus things that you have done. How, given the fact that you are accused sex pest and the fact that you were supporting Netanyahu, how will survivors in New York and women in New York feel safe under you? So,
Miracle,
like, I
didn't ask those questions to Donald Trump, who not only has all these felonies that came from, like you said, when you talk about all these accusations that he has from women that said that he abused them, you know, he lost a court case that said that he sexually assaulted his woman. That's what the court said, not me. We didn't ask him. I mean, well, he, you know, people might have asked him those questions. He dismissed them. He dismissed. Donald Trump still won't say that the exonerated five are innocent, despite actual DNA evidence. And you don't, like, that's not a bridge too far for you with him. But now when here comes a brown person or a black person or somebody's a Muslim, now you want to always do this policing and you got to do this. And what I love about how he handled that is because it's like, judge me by my actions. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm putting money towards. Look at what I'm doing. I'm not even saying this. So again, you want to get into a space where now are we looking at like, what are you saying over there? Or what are you saying over here? And again, like, if that politic worked, we would have a different president.
Correct.
That does not work. So why are we trying to force somebody to condemn instead of looking at like what this man did, which energized your whole fucking party?
And I just want to say one thing because I know we're at time. I hope Abandon Harris uses what Zoran did and takes over the Republican Party and puts in bigoted candidates on the conservative side.
They're gonna change their name, I guess.
To abandon Trump or whatever, because I also think that like I talk a lot about the Democratic Party, but I also think that like there are so many Republicans who also are not for the foolishness and the shenanigans that the Republican Party is doing. We think about this I call it the big busted bill, but we think about the fact that there may be 17 million people.
The big, right as we are ending this show, J.D. Vance cast the deciding vote. It was 50-50 in the Senate.
Jesus Christ.
And the big, beautiful bill has passed. Like you said, millions of people are going to lose Medicaid. It's the highest transfer of wealth in the history of this country.
Can I say something about this?
Absolutely.
There has been so much discussion around which language we can use right now politically. And if you are a person who feels that politically defund the police is too radical for you, but defunding Medicare is not, then you are a radical person in favor of capitalism.
I agree.
And you have to look back at where your morality stands, and where you place yourself in this, I guess, the race of moving America forward. Taking away Medicare and all these SNAP benefits is going to vastly and marginally destroy a lot of the people who look like Donald Trump that voted for him. All these white people in middle America, all these poor white people in Appalachia and the Ozarks and, you know, and the Inland Empire and all these areas that voted for Donald Trump that are white are going to feel this blowback. And when they are finding some place to blame, it's not going to be Zoran Mamdani. Right? It's not going to be some brown person who was elected. Yeah, this came from the person you voted for. So all you people who are radical capitalists that voted for defunding Medicare as opposed to funding schools and defunding police, which doesn't even have the same fucking connotation that you believe it does, right, are the ones that be to blame when you're dying of your own white supremacy.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, we saw that with West Virginia, which has the most federal workers. And when all those workers start losing their jobs, there were people in West Virginia that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And now where are you going to find yourself?
I mean, there's a whole book that Jonathan Metzler wrote that we interviewed him on the show called Dying of Whiteness.
So, I'm sorry.
No. That's it.
I was going to say, you know, next episode, obviously, we'll talk about the fallout from the big, beautiful bill, which, again, is just, like, Trump marketed this to you a lot, and he's marketing it to these poor. They're basically just straight up lying.
Yeah.
They're lying and saying, oh, it's not going to cut Medicaid. It's not going to do all this stuff, which it does. It also, as we're watching folks fight back against ICE, it also gives billions more dollars to ICE to go around and kidnap folks. And so again, like, we're in this place now. We're in the, what is it? What's the place in Stranger Things?
The Upside Down.
We're in the Upside Down. We're hurting. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, man.
You gonna read this blackmail or?
Oh, do we have time? Oh, yes. Well, if you were the person who wrote this blackmail, I'm sorry. Don't watch this episode. This is John Hayes, Jhan. And the subject is Miracle and Company. I'm tired of you attacking the Democrats. I lived under Jim Crow. You have the life you have now because we fought for you. We now live in critical times. We can argue about a third-party system after we defeat Trump and the white supremacists. The reason we're critiquing the Democrat is because we are trying to defeat Trump and the white supremacists. But if the white supremacists are also Democrats...
Then I got a word for you, John Hayes. Shut up, nigga.
No.
Miracle and Company is crazy.
Shut up, nigga.
No. I have this conversation.
Hey, John, my name is Jasiri, by the way.
No, I actually had this conversation with somebody because I do give our black elders grace, and they were talking about the vote down of black people who voted for Mamdani. There are so many of our black elders who fought for civil rights, who are attached to the winds of the civil rights movement and protecting the winds of the civil rights movement, that they allow their fear of something different to keep them beholden to a Democratic Party that is no longer serving them or fighting for them or ensuring that they are okay. This legislation, and I think Senator Gillibrand is a part of this idea that some of these Democrats are actually kind of like Republicans in their bigotry and their hatred.
Absolutely.
And we have a right to push them and say, you know what, we're going to hold you accountable because you can do something different, something better. And that's simply what we were telling Democrats is like, it's okay to progress. It's okay to fight for people.
Yes.
It's okay to stand for trans people and working families and stand for families and not donors.
Yes.
And we wouldn't be in this mess. I'm hoping that as we get together and we fight for the solidarity and we engage more, that we start to understand, like, oh, what we're fighting for is something that we are pushing for civil rights and engaging. And as we read books, that's also what we're doing. Well, I love that book so much.
Our white pages, Octavia Butler, Parable of the Talents, you know what I'm saying? Toshi Reagan, The Introduction, another incredible artist and sister. So just to take us again, we have to imagine a new world, a new reality. You know, again, to us, you know, the primary victory of Zoran is like what we could do, right? To us, it's like, oh, let's imagine politicians that actually walk and talk to us, that can touch us, that's not in some bunker somewhere making decisions that negatively affect us. Now, with this bill passing, we need folks that are willing to fight for the working class people now more than ever. So if you're a politician and your main interest is fundraising and getting billions of dollars from the same people that supported Donald Trump, we're not interested in you or your policies. If you can't say, like Miracle said, no, I'm not taking this money, because you supported Donald Trump and look where that got us. If you can't take those stances, those moral, those courageous stances, we don't want to vote for you in 2025 moving forward. And so with that being said, we are supposed to be off. I guess we can finally, Fetterman can go home now.
Fetterman go home to his beach house.
Fetterman could go to the beach now. Like, he didn't want to. Fetterman was like, yo, why am I here? So we're supposed to be off. We're here. We have stuff that we're going to be doing tomorrow, and then we're going to take the rest of the week off. But, you know, again, We love being here. We love sharing, and we love making sure the information
two
gets
people
out.
speak French. That's so cute.
Get out to our community. So, final words.
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting. Rook? Nothing? Canada Day?
I mean, you know, it'll be over by the time they see this.
Wow. My question is, I kind of want to say, tune in next week. So Miracle will talk about how the passing of the big beautiful bill was all Joe Biden.
Well,
was all Joe Biden and the Democrats.
My favorite thing.
With that being said, this week on White Supremacy, my name is Jasiri, actually. His name is Farouk.
My name is Miracle.
We know your name, Miracle. We'll see y'all next week. Peace. One hood.